it's definitely a proxy. And if you're going up against a Terran, you want to make sure there's a supply depot somewhere. You want to make sure that there's no early gas. Like if there's a gas right now, that's really early, already mining. If it's already mining, and you want to make sure there's a barracks somewhere around here. You don't, because that's really what you look for is scouting. You want to make sure that your opponent isn't doing anything funky. So the other thing is that you should never just scout up here. Like, I shouldn't leave this probe here, because some people do that, especially on 4-player maps where it's 1v1, because they're looking for the building at the wall. Well, if my opponent hadn't walled, like, the Zerg can't do it obviously, but if it was like a Terran or a Protoss and he hadn't walled, and he had just been building next to his Nexus or Command Center, then I wouldn't know by just looking at here whether he's in this position or not. Obviously, Steps of War, one-way map, it doesn't really matter, but just wanted to make that little note about the scouting patterns. Now, let's go ahead and take a look here at my camera again. I'm going to try, oh, excuse me, I'm going to keep up the production tab. I forgot to do that, as I want you to see what's going down at what supply. So look at this, just around 150 minerals, right when I was around 12 supply, I put the first gateway down. So this is very important that you do this. Now, if I had been using Chrono Boost, this probe that I'm making right now would have been wasted. Some of the Chrono Boost that I would have been using on this probe might have been wasted. So you can get almost 2 probes per Chrono Boost. And right immediately after that gateway goes down, I'm going to make a second probe, and that's when I want to start using the Chrono Boost. Now look at this. This is where the Protoss build starts picking up a little bit, because there are a lot of things that I just did. I just put down a gateway, I made another probe, I made sure I had enough minerals for that probe, then I used Chrono Boost, and then almost immediately I put down my first gas. For Protoss, this is very, very, very important that you put this early gas first, as early as possible. So let's go ahead and play this going on, and I will talk about this a little bit later on. So you want to make sure you're using Chrono Boost back to back. This is when I recommend start using Chrono Boost back to back. So make probes and use Chrono Boost back to back, back to back. Once this gas is finished, my recommendation is that you put 1 probe here. And right around this time, as you can see, so many things going on. You want to put 1 pylon down. Where you put this pylon is very up to you. You can put it down here to have a double pylon powering this gateway. You can put it here, and I'll talk a little bit why I choose to do it here. You can hide it somewhere, so you can, put your cybernetics core somewhere where it's out of sight if you are going to be walling off here with units. But the reason I put it here is because if you were to look at the hex, I have exactly enough space here to put a cannon if I were to choose so. So normally what I do is, because at this point I would know whether there's a rush or not, or if it's 10 pool or anything like that. This is a very defensive position to put it, because I can put a building here and I put a cannon behind it, and this cannon pretty much is unreachable. Like, it's very hard to move your units all across here and reach it if there was one. Or even for your units, if you put zealots here, I mean, they are pretty much blocked by a building here and by this pylon. Now, it's a very preferential thing whether you prefer to put it down here. If you're noticing you get your pylon sniped a lot, you might want to put it here as on the gateway. Or like I said, if you're going for a sneakier build, you could put it someplace off base, especially if there's a Terran that's going to be scanning you in a little while. They can't scan your whole base, so definitely you could hide this somewhere. You could also, although I wouldn't recommend it at this point, you could probably put a proxy pylon somewhere around here or something like that, but I will talk a little bit more about that later. So notice I've put only 1 probe on gas right now, and what I'm really trying to do here is I'm trying to get my cybernetics core as soon as possible. So this is why it's a little bit different than what I think most people do. Is normally they would saturate this gas immediately. You're not going to need all that gas right now in the instant, but if you put 1 probe here, you're still getting gas, which is a big thing. You might not think those 15 gas that you're getting is a big deal, but it kind of is, and I'll show you guys a little bit ahead why that is. But I want to make sure my cybernetics core goes down as soon as possible, because zealots, they're very good against infantry, but if you're facing like a Reaper rush or a Roach rush or anything like that, or even a 2 zealot push or rush, the Stalker is going to be the superior unit that you really want to make, and I'm actually going to talk about that in just a second as this finishes up. So let's take a look at this gateway. This is another thing where the Protoss build differentiates a little bit. Now, what is the first unit you want to make out of here? Let's take a look here. I've actually left this probe here because it was kind of a mistake. I wasn't really paying attention. I was trying to focus more on my base. But let's say I'm scouting over here. Let's say I saw a pool, and let's say that I see that just as the pool finished, there are 3 eggs immediately morphing. That normally means that there is a Zergling rush coming. That there are going to be 6 Zerglings at my base in something about like a minute or two. So if that's the case, if I'd gone ahead and scouted that, I want to make sure I make a Zealot immediately. Like, that is just the key. Same for thing if you saw Protoss who is making another Zealot, you want to make sure that Zealot comes out immediately. So this is where you kind of have to start doing a decision making process of what you scouted and whether you're going to make a unit first or not. If you're playing against Terran, I strongly recommend you do not make a Zealot first, because the real threat from Terran is the Reaper, and the only thing that really can defeat a Reaper this early into the game is a Stalker. And depending if it's a proxy or not, I mean, you can check out some of my other videos on Beat the Rush and how to deal with that accordingly. But just for this video, you know, if you're playing Terran, I generally recommend that you go Stalker first. So you're not going to make that Zealot, because those are 100 minerals that you want for the Cybernetics core. So let's take a look at here. I've timed, with this timing, look at how everything is done almost flawlessly. Just as this pylon is finishing, the next probe is coming out. And on top of that, just as that is happening, I've put down my Cybernetics core. Now look at this. Like I told you guys, my pylon positioning is a little bit off. There's actually a little gap here, but normally this pylon would be right next to the Cybernetics core and would be a solid wall right here. So all you would have to block is this little space right here, and you'd have a 2 building wall with a 1000 health building and a 1100 health building. So if I had seen like a rush or something, I could have put a forge right here instead of that Cybernetics core if I so needed to. Just so you guys can see what the decision making process is for myself when I'm playing Terran. Now, the second that Cybernetics core goes down, you want to take this same probe that put it down, you want to put it on gas, and you want to pick up a second probe and put it on gas. And let's go ahead and continue this here. This is when you really want to start mining your gas, and you're going to put another gas down as soon as possible after that, because Protoss are really heavily dependent on gas, depending on what build that they go, obviously, but in general, the builds that you go will be gas heavy. Now, the third thing you want to do is, at this point in time, guys, you're probably going to start piling up minerals, because you're waiting for the Cybernetics core to come down so you can make a Stalker. And notice that I have 20 supply over 26, so I've grabbed one probe here, and I'm actually going to put a pylon down, which I don't need to. This is something that I just do because it is really, I don't want to be piling too many minerals on. So notice where I've put it. I've put it behind the gateway and behind the Cybernetics core. Why? Because if this pylon were to get taken down, then these 2 buildings are immediately unpowered. That is one key thing, guys. As a Protoss player, there is nothing more horrible than being in game, having one pylon powering up 4 gateways, a Cybernetics core, and a forge, that pylon being taken down, and all those buildings immediately being unpowered and costing you the game. You want to make sure you put overlapping pylons in power. Actually, I can see, this is more or less, if you were wondering what the coverage for the circle is on the ramp. Notice that I should have put this up a little bit, just a little, like 1 hex over and maybe 1 hex above, so that it's just barely reaching the ramp. This is the important part. This is how you know you're doing it right, because when you put it down, it's going to barely be reaching the ramp, and that's really what you want. So like I was saying, you want to make a overlapping pylon power placement. You don't want one pylon to be taken down and your whole production to be stopped. So let's continue here, still making probes. Once the Cybernetics core down, one thing I forgot to mention is once you put the Cybernetics core down, you want to stop using Chrono Boost. Now let me take another aside here. This is one of the very key issues that a lot of Protoss players kind of debate on, and I've actually gotten some comments on it on my channel about it and some of my other videos, and it's when and how much of the Chrono Boost you need to use. Personally, guys, and really from playing like a lot of games and seeing a lot of players, I have to tell you, there is nothing wrong with pulling your Chrono Boost. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. The only thing you do not want it to be doing is to be 100 and 100. That is the only thing you do not want to be doing it. This will vary a lot on your playstyle. Are you being aggressive? Do you want an upgrade really fast? Do you want a certain unit really fast? Things like that. Things that you're gonna have to really come to terms with your own self. There is nothing. If someone tells you, "Oh, you need to use your chrono boost back to back," that is completely untrue. 100%. I can guarantee you, I've won games specifically because I've let the chrono boost pool. So just to reiterate, the only thing you do not want to be doing is to have it at 100 for more than a second or two. So if it's 100 and 100, you just and you're waiting for, like, say for example the cybernetics core to finish because I want to use it all on warp gate, but it's still not quite there. Just use it on a probe, just use it on a stalker, use it on whatever. Now, yeah, just use it on whatever. Sorry, I thought I was a little bit behind, but I'm not. Anyway, so just a little aside on chrono boost usage and things like that. So let's keep on playing. Once this gas is finished, you almost immediately want to put three SCVs on it. Excuse me, 3 probes on it, as I am doing here. Now, once this, let's pause here real quick. This is why it was important for that one probe to be mining this gas only for a couple of seconds. Like, he must have mined like 10 or 15 gas. Look at how much gas I have. Now look at how much gateway costs, 50 gas, and look at how much a stalker costs, 50 gas. If I didn't have those 10, 15 extra gas, I would have to wait about 5 to 10 seconds extra, depending on how long I took to saturate that, to make both the gateway and the stalker. Not to mention that if I had put 3 probes on gas, then my cybernetics core would have been a couple of seconds later, which when you have a Reaper rush, this is very key that this goes down immediately. So at this point in time, I want to, for a 4-gate build, you want to get warp gate as soon as possible. So I'm going to start both warp gate and a stalker. And I'm going to start using my chrono boost back to back on the warp gate, at least to the best of my ability. I recall messing up a little bit with the chrono boost here, not being on top of it, but it's definitely something. If you're going for this build, really what you want, the key component here is warp gate, because you want to be able to produce units and then from a gateway, and then just as warp gate is finishing, have more units come from each warp gateway. Now after this is done, you want to put a second gateway down. Now, notice this pylon just finished like a couple seconds ago, and I'm already at 25 supply. If I had waited any longer, so it's 26 actually, if I had waited any longer, I probably would be supply blocked and it'd be a complete disaster. So here, this is another time I gotta take a